Okay, welcome to my very first solo episode, which I should have prepared a bit more for, but we eventually landed on analyzing why smut books are good for you and how they can increase your own sensuality, vulnerability, and creativity. If you're new here, you're listening to the How We Get Thru podcast, a place for you to feel connected through deep and meaningful conversations with healers from all over the world. I'm your host, Jen, a licensed therapist and founder and CEO of the How We Get Thru app, and my mission is to bring you affordable and diverse therapy resources to help you get through the hard stuff all in one place and at your own pace. Welcome to the How We Get Thru community. Hello, and welcome back to the How We Get Thru podcast, you guys. Today is another first. This is the first solo episode I have ever done. And I don't know how it's going to go. So thank you for being along the ride with me. I'm just excited to be here. First off, you guys, I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful for everyone that has DM'd me or texted me and saying that they love the podcast, that they know me or that they really got something from the guest. I really started the podcast as a way to promote and launch a therapy app called How We Get Thru. And it really turned into, surprise, surprise, my own healing journey in that. And really in launching something that big in my life, it was the first big thing, the app. It really pushed me to the limit. I almost was like, okay, if I'm going to be forward facing in this, let me dig deep. What have I been avoiding? What are my traumas that I haven't uncovered yet? What do I need to reassess and look at? It really threw me into this crazy healing journey that, I think if I look back at my life, there's different stages of that. But in the last 2 years, it has been a giant, I don't know, there's a little bit of a spiritual awakening, but then there's also just so much healing in that as well, which I think I've kind of ignored my spirit or spiritual side for a very long time. So, but that all came from healing lifetime stuff, trauma in this lifetime. So yeah, it's just been a wild ride when I think about when I launched the podcast to even who I am now. There's been so many transitions. There's been so many endings and beginnings and really beautiful things that have happened. And so I'm just so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful I was going to do Snoop Dogg. I like to thank me for being me or counting on me. But really, yes, I took the leap, but everybody else took the leap with me. So I'm just so grateful for all of you. So thank you so much. Yeah. So I don't really have a ton of I have some notes. I don't have a ton of structure. And I mean, is this going to be Dear Diary? I don't know, guys. But here we go. I thought about what are the things that I've been needing women in my life. I've been needing gatherings. I've been needing connection and community. I work from home. I work for myself. I don't get out much. And that's what I really love about the podcast too, is that I can connect to someone really deep that lives wherever. And that's been really great. But I also need in life real connections. And I always joke we're gonna do some witchy stuff, I'm we're gonna draw we're gonna light candles and draw circles on the floor or whatever. But I mean, none of that's happened. Don't worry, guys. I'm not an actual witch. I mean, but are we? I don't know. Anyway, but the need to be around women and the need to talk and just connect has been so strong. And especially in these last few months, I'm hey, you guys, let's get together, and just random people that I meet. And so it's just been so much fun. And if you are one of those women in my life, you will hear me talk about spirituality or tarot or smut books. Okay? In the same conversation, right? It doesn't, what comes first? I don't even know. It doesn't matter, right? But these are the two things that I've been so passionate about. I think the smut book's really for women. but spirituality has been a big part of that as well. So let's talk about smut books first, okay? So I started reading in October of last year. I was just on TikTok all the time, and I fell into book talk, which is a whole thing. But I was like, God, I'm like on my phone for 3 hours at the night. And it's not good for me. I need to break this habit. I don't like it, but I'm like addicted to it, right? So I started reading A Court of Thorns and Roses, which is the ACOTAR series. It's a 5-book series. It is like candy, and it was the gateway drug to a whole new genre that I didn't even know I needed. Okay? So if you have never read a smut book, please start there. If you have read ACOTAR, you're like cheering right now. You're like, yes, girl, yes, girl. I know all those characters, and I fell in love with this one, and I am this one. So shout out to you. You did it. I love it. And then I read the whole series except for Throne of Glass. I have 2 more. I just cannot get there. Tower of Dawn. I heard Kingdom of Ash is great, but anyway. So that really just threw me into, it's like, guys, books are magical, right? They really are. Like when I started watching Bridgerton this season whatever, 3, I think. And I stopped watching. I was like, this is not as good as my books. Like you cannot replace the words and the world building that you get and the satisfaction that you get from reading a book to television. And everybody always says that, you know what I mean? But it is so true. So what smut books have done for me is, number 1, kick my TikTok habit, which thank you, appreciate it. And number 2, I think it was really helpful. Okay, all of these characters are written by women. Okay, so all of the men are written by women. So it is like the epitome of a man. And listen, there's hockey smut. Okay, there's like mafia smut. There's like alien and inanimate objects smut. There's one called Forked. It's like this, it's fantasy, obviously, but like, I guess like this army got like trapped by this witch and she put them all in cutlery. And then this girl falls in love with a fork. It's a whole thing. Okay, I have not read that one. And then there's, what other kind of smut is there? Then there's like the fairy smut, which is, I'm into like all the powers and stuff and the witchy worlds and blah, blah, blah. It just is amazing. Then there's real life smut, which I think would be Colleen Hoover. I haven't read any of her books, and I know you're probably screaming at me, but that's more like suspense too, I think. But I, as a therapist, like I love fantasy. I love fantasy. You know why? Because that guy can get killed and die, and I don't really care because it's not real life. Do you know what I mean? Like there's something about it that just really kind of takes me away and allows me to be imaginative, like playful. So, but you get to pick what genre you like, and you might like 3 of them. You might like all of them. You might just like one of them, whatever it is. But I would say experiment with that. And if you need recommendations, DM me on How We Get Thru. And maybe I should make a list. I don't know. Because listen, I might be a newbie to somebody who's like, oh my gosh, I've been reading smut for decades. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know who I'm talking to out here. So if you are a newbie and you don't know where to start, let me know. If you are an oldie but a goodie, then thank you for paving the way. I appreciate it. So the world building is so amazing, and the men in these books are, man. Okay, ACOTAR, he has wings, right? And like, I don't know, purple eyes, right? But like, you're not going to find that in the real world. But they have such command and control. There's also enemies to lovers, which is great. Good tension. The tension in these books, even if there's like no smut scenes, the tension is like, this is what women need. This is what we want. This is what gets the engine going right before or even before anything in the real world. So it's a great starter kit. If you're feeling like, I don't know, like just blah, or you're like, I want to feel something, start with smut books. Sorry, going back to the men. I'll just talk about Akatar, for example. Rhysand is the main guy. There's also Tamlin. It's a fine, whatever. Anyway, most of the men in the books are just badass. I mean, they like have magic. I guess this is so funny. They like have magic, but they also are, I'm like blushing, guys. Sorry, they also can like kick anybody's ass. Do you know what I mean? They also like are maybe like tech savvy, even though there's no tech in that book. They like know all the things, right? Like they have all the things a woman could want. And they take control, I think, more sexually, and they take control more with like body and the like sensual side. And at the same time, they treat her, or the main character, as an equal. Like, so there's always this kind of push and pull of like, I will dominate you when you want me to dominate, and you don't need to tell me. And then there's like this equality part where it's like mutual, like you have just as much as power as I do, and I want to like rule the kingdom with you, So there's also a really beautiful partnership that gets to evolve out of that. I can't believe I'm like psychoanalyzing smut, but here we are. So it just was a really beautiful part of, number one, that dominance that I think we kind of lose a little bit in our everyday life because we become so masculine, because we work, because we raise kids, because we have businesses, because we are controlling the schedules. Like there's so much masculine energy we do on the daily that when it comes to the bedroom, that's like the last part where we want that. Do you know what I mean? I'm speaking in general terms, right? So I think that was just a very beautiful, eye-opening need or want for me, was that dominant piece. Like that is hot. I like that. That is really important for me. And that's what I love about smut books and different scenes and whatever. I mean, you guys, there's a range from like YA, which is a young adult that has like no explicit scenes, to the dark romance, dark smut stuff. So you can pick and choose whatever feels comfortable for you. But I would just start to just see what is being like brought forth for you. I think it almost is like, I don't know if you've seen that TikTok. I keep talking about TikTok, but it's like they're like vampires, and they're like they like come alive when someone's gonna like talk shit or something. I don't know. It's very funny, but that's how I felt with the smut books. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm alive. Like I feel something now again. Like I'm excited about something. I'm also like a hopeless romantic. Okay, guys, I like love a rom-com. I love tension. I love love. I love happy endings. I love all of it. I just love all of it. I'm very sensual as well. So it like ticked all the boxes for me, and it's still happening. And I just really like appreciate it. And so like every time I'm like, hey, have you guys read any smut books? And they're like, what's that? I'm like, oh my God. Okay. Do this, do that, read this, read that. And I really am not like a great synopsis, where I'm like, okay, this book is about like dragons and like at war, but like they're enemies to lovers, but then it's like really good. I'm like the worst person to tell you what the book is about, but I'm the best person to tell you why you should read it. So, I think another part that it helped me with was seeing, I think, the strength in the women as well, and that their sexuality, sensuality, and who they are in the real world gets to be like together. Do you know what I mean? Like they're not two separate people. And I think that happens to us in motherhood, where it's like, oh, I have to turn this part off of me. And I think, my kids are 6 and 4 now. So I think there's a lot of years that I was lost there in my body, in what I wanted. Sorry, I thought there was a fly. in my body, or what I wanted, or loving my body, or appreciating my body because it was for a different purpose and was for somebody else. And so really kind of getting that back for myself was really important. Getting back to like, oh my gosh, I love to dance. Do you know what I mean? I love to like flip my hair. I love to like lip sync and pretend I'm in a music video. I love to move my body sensually. Like all of these things kind of got to like unleash a lot of things. Or it's like this remembrance of like, oh yeah, girl, you not dead. You ain't dead. You just had to be like hibernated for a little while. And I'm grateful for those years. And I know her. And oh my gosh, I'm gonna get a little teary. Like I just appreciate her for this is a dear diary. Um, I appreciate her and all she did and went through. And it takes time to, and it takes intention to kind of get back to that person and then also reinvent her, you know? So, and I feel like these last 2 years have been that, like, that peeling layers off of getting down to, like, who I really am, which will always grow and change, right? So, and that's, I mean, I love change, guys. I'm like, what's the next thing? What are we doing, right? But sometimes it can be hard, and sometimes we can subconsciously, like, resist that. Like, I'm fine here. Like, I don't want anything to change. So yeah, smut books were like an unleashing for a lot of power back into my sexuality, sensuality, my body. It, expanded things and things that I might not be used to, right? Or have done. Okay, guys, because I did dark. Okay, okay. Okay, I'm blushing again because I read one dark romance, like dark smut book. And it is like, it has trigger warnings, you guys, in the front of the book. Okay. And it changed my DNA. I was like, there are some scenes in there that I'm like, why is this so hot? Do you know what I mean? And part of it is like, I don't know if I really would like that in real life. Do you know what I mean? There's some pieces I'm like, I don't know, like, but the way it's described, I'm like, oh, I like the essence of this, right? I like that they're really in control in this way, or they surprised her in this way, or whatever it is. Because again, in these books, from a woman's point of view, the woman's pleasure is always the important thing and the thing that is getting like the point across. It's never, even if it's, you know, on the dark side, if it's a little, it feels like assaulty. I don't even know how to say that. If it feels like she is resisting it, it always goes back to her pleasure and that it feels great for her. So there's never a moment where it's like so dark where she's shattered by it. It's more of like, oh, this is like tipping her to a point that she didn't know she desired, if that makes sense. So that was what's really interesting. I was like, wow, it's called Haunting Adeline. No. Yes, Haunting Adeline. And then the second book is Hunting Adeline. And the second book is really rough. Like I had to skip through the first. I mean, I read it, but it was very rough. But not because of him, but because of some other things. So anyway, so I would, if you are new to smut, do not start with that book, okay? Unless you are dark girly already, you're like, I feel nothing and I love that kind of stuff. Go for it. But the Agatar really is like, will just kind of like get you. It's a big commitment. It's 5 books and they are very big. Okay. So you could also start with The Veiled Kingdom by, what's her name? Holly Renee? I don't know. That one's a short one. It's only a 1 book, but the second book's coming out. Or Fourth Wing, but Fourth Wing and Avatar are very long. So just know that going in. Fourth Wing, and then Iron Flame is the second book, and the third book, Onyx Storm, is coming out. Oh my gosh, I sound like a nerd. It's coming out soon. I got a Kindle for Mother's Day. I will not go back, you guys. I got Kindle Unlimited. You get so many books for free for 3 months. I read on it's just my wrists don't hurt because I'm holding a book. But I was like the book girly for a long time, and I would buy each book. When I finished a book, I would buy a new one, you know? Because I was like, I don't know, I can't commit to this, right? And then here I am, like 6 months later, 7 months later, I'm deep into it. And I want all the women to just read it. And I'm like, is there ever a time in my life will I not be reading smut? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, when you read some, you're like, okay, this feels a lot like this book, right? Or some of them can feel very like repetitive. It's hard, I think, in the fantasy world to be really original in a lot of ways. But we're only like, I don't know, 25% here for the story plot. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's helpful, but we're not like, I'm not reading Harry Potter, right? Which is, Harry Potter's great. I never read it, but I'm not just here for the magic, right? I'm not here just for the magic. I'm here for the real deal. Yeah, so I think it's just really, it's a safe way to explore your own sensuality, sexuality, and to read something and be like, what do I like about that? I haven't done that before. That's interesting, right? I think you can also bring this into your relationship. So maybe your partner or husband or whoever or wife gets like intimidated if you're reading those books, right? And that is obviously just an insecurity that, oh, am I not giving them something that they need? And truth is, right, I think for a lot of women, we don't know what we need. So for our partners to be like, what do you need? You're like, I don't know, but I'm reading this book and I think I need this, right? I think it's a beautiful way to kind of let them into your own head and let them into your own fantasy world. So some ways to do that is you can, I mean, if they want to read it, I see a lot of people like boyfriends and partners on TikTok are reading the ACOTAR series and other things, and they're like obsessed with it. But if your partner won't do that, I think it's really cool to like read a scene to them and you can say, and read it out loud to them, because they might not be like, oh yeah, I want to read that. But you can say, I think this is really hot because of X, Y, and Z. Or I loved how he did this, right? Or, I mean, there's a whole like good girl trope, right? Like where he calls her good girl. It's a whole thing, you guys. And you can role play with that, right? If your partner is open to that and accepting of that, I think it's a really beautiful way to bridge the gap into real world intimacy and really being vulnerable, because you are being vulnerable and saying, this is what is really exciting for me, you know? And sometimes when you can read it instead of saying, I want you to do that, it's a little bit easier, you know? And I just think it gets you starting to be creative. The second thing that I think that I've learned of how to bring more things into relationships from the books is tension, right? I think as women need that tension. We need that buildup. We need to feel desired. We need to know that you've been thinking about us. So another request can be, oh, I really like the tension in this book, which is like, will they, won't they kind of vibe. And you can start this by like sending a text. If it's like, oh, I've been thinking about you. You guys, from G-rated to off the charts, whatever you want to, please do. Or it could be a picture or whatever. And you can start that ball rolling on the tension. Or you can say, hey, I really like it if you text me, I don't know, what are you wearing? No. No, I think that you need more tension before that it gets there. But I am so excited to see you today when I get home or whatever, right? Something like that. So again, it's expressing to your partner a need and seeing if they will fulfill it, if they are open to that. So every relationship is different. But I would encourage you to, again, like you can still have the smut books be your own little world, but it gives you time to like really marinate in what is exciting for you, what turns you on, what would feel good, what to even explore your own body. You're like, oh my gosh, I just read this scene. I'll see you guys later, whatever works for you. It's just a beautiful way to reconnect with your body and sensuality. That has just been a game changer for me. And again, like it doesn't have to wedge anything into your relationship, because a woman that owns her body and owns her sexuality and knows what she wants is actually more powerful in relationships, is actually more powerful in the world, is actually more powerful in a bathing suit during the summer, right? It's all of these things that when we can own our creativity, that feminine energy, the sensuality, the nurturing part even, right? It becomes like a spark for us. It becomes like, oh, I'm alive, right? I'm coming back from the dead and I want to wear a dress today instead of like workout clothes. Like, and this doesn't have to be every day, because we all know we're cyclical creatures, right? Like yesterday I was like, damn, I'm looking good. I'm doing this. And then last night I started my period and I'm like, I look like a troll. What is happening, right? So, you're not always going to feel on top of the world, but when you do, allow yourself to flow with that. Another thing is it starts to bring up, do I have any resistance to these things? Do I have any judgments towards these things? Do I have any judgments toward the author that would even create this or write this thing, right? And start to explore why that is. Start to explore, is that because the way I grew up? Is that because I grew up with religion? Is that because I have some sexual trauma in the past? Like, what is it? Because I think that is also another healing part, that we can look at these pieces that we haven't been able to address, especially if you've been a mom. Yeah, I just think you can start to unpack certain things and certain maybe blocks that you've had in your sexuality or sensuality to feel really connected and vulnerable to who you are. I also think it's fun. So the dark romance one I read with 3 other girls, and that I was like, I don't know what I'm getting into, guys, so I'm gonna need some support here. But it's great to do like a book club with. And I know one of the girls and she's like, oh, I got another 2 girls that want to read it. I'm like, okay, great. So you can just like have your best friend read it, or some random person. I think I'm sure there's like a ton of groups. There's like Goodreads and all the things that you can join as well. But start small, like, and then you start community. And then what's the best part is you get to talk about what was exciting for you with your girlfriends first, before you want to talk to your partner, or vice versa. It doesn't matter, right? But it is that, like, I think that's why I get so excited about, like, when I see a group where I'm like, oh my God, do you read any smut books? Because it feels like freedom. It feels like unlocking the chastity belt, unlocking all the keys here to our sexuality and sensuality, that, again, these women have written these worlds and these men for like the ideal outcome is like pleasure and partnership. And it's so powerful and it's so beautiful. And I think, that's a crazy combination, pleasure and partnership. I just thought about that. Like, what does that feel like to have that in a relationship, right? I have my own pleasure, and that's just not even sexual, but that's like joy, right? Like, how do I feel happy again, right? And then I have partnership. I have a partner that supports me in my happiness and in my pleasure and in my feminine energy. And so you get to be restored and then get to support them in whatever their energy is as well. So it really is, this has become an analysis of smut books. And I'm sure there's more out there, and I'm sure you've heard me say it on any of the like pleasure podcasts that I've done. I'm like, oh yeah, smut books. But I just think it is such a beautiful and safe way to rediscover yourself, or rediscover new things that are really exciting. So, I think I was going to talk about spirituality and tarot, but like maybe some other time, because I'm very excited about that. It's fun. Oh, you guys, do you know what SMUT stands for? This is exciting. So, thanks to Reddit, I found that smuts were bits of black that you get from steam engines, like from the trains. So basically it's saying like smut is a bit dirty. So it's a slang for sexy things and sexual material. But I thought that was so interesting, smut, because I thought it was like an actual acronym, but no, it's, thank you, Reddit. That's very important. Yeah, so thank you guys again. I did not know where this episode was going, but here we are. Grab your smut books today. DM me if you don't know where to start. And if you are a friend in my life or a woman in my life, thank you for allowing me the space to talk about smut books. And again, you guys, I just really appreciate all of you, and thank you for listening to the solo episode. I will not be listening to this back because it was it's a roller coaster of, it's just crazy. Okay. Love you guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time with actual guests on. Wow. If you made it through that episode, you guys, thank you for the ride or dies. I really appreciate it. Okay. If you have any questions about smut books, DM me on How We Get Thru. I would love to have a conversation. I would love to help you in your journey. Or if you want to connect, you're like, yes, I've read this book, and it changed my life. Let's do it. And if you guys are loving the podcast, if you can please leave a review up on Apple Podcasts, it tremendously helps us get more viewers and get the podcast out into the open. So thank you guys again. We'll see you next time, and we'll have some guests on next time. So get ready. Thank you guys. Bye.